somehow
Volo
returned.
That's right, very unexpectedly, Pokemon Masters has added Volo to the game. I'm a bit late to the party, but oh my gosh, I still can't believe they did it. We did get a little hint to him being on Pasio back with the Ray and Akari event. But now the traveling merchant from the Ginkgo Guild finally shows himself. The scene begins with Jacques, Trevor, and the player character continuing to investigate the mysterious stones. This is an ongoing thing that's mentioned from time to time. The point is that Volo inserts himself into the conversation, being all nice and learning about the Pokédex. A pretty good idea for a connection, as Jacques helped to develop the Pokédex in the Paldea region, and Trevor is a kid with research on the mind. Volo is somebody who observes and learns everything he can with the goal of eventually meeting Arceus, which seems to still be the case here. Now I'm wondering when and where exactly this Volo came from, because he's still wearing the Ginkgo Guild uniform and is partnered with a Togepi, but he also mentions there's somebody on the island that he wants to avoid, implied to be Ray.
Ray who?
Even if this is a version of him before the major events of Legends Arceus, he still has the same personality throughout. Anyway, later on, Jacques is giving a lecture to some young students, telling them about the genetic potential of Mew and how it's possibly the ancestor of all Pokemon. One student smartly asks where Mew came from, and Volo appears again to share some mythology of Arceus and the universe's origin, reciting the same passage that we see in Pokemon Diamond and Pearl. Pretty cool to see that reference yet again, but it does make sense because that's literally what Volo is all about, traveling around and studying the legends of Sinnoh, and it reinforces this story as one that's passed around and known by a handful of people. Jacques kind of just handwaves it all as a theory with no scientific basis, but he does name drop Rhyhorn as someone who would be interested. And oh my gosh, could you imagine how dangerous it would be to have Rhyhorn and Volo in the same room? He's already learning too much from everybody else here in modern day, especially as N shows up and Volo learns he has the ability to communicate with Pokemon, wondering if he would be able to even communicate with Arceus. I actually really do like that this is all being set up because Volo is still keeping his nice guy facade going. I'm wondering if he'll attempt to manipulate some of the trainers he meets here, formulating an ultimate plan. It's still good to know that at least he cares for Togepi and that she's happy, as we find out from N. I mean, it wouldn't have been able to evolve into a Togekiss otherwise. But the craziest revelation here is that upon actually seeing one of the mysterious stones in person, he's able to identify what they are. And like, this is an insane but perfectly reasonable way of doing things, because all the people in modern day can't really solve their mysteries, but somebody from years ago with knowledge of mythology might just know what is going on. Volo as a character is so fascinating in this way because we've seen him explore actual ruins, but also just casually chat with someone like Kogita, who is the sole chronicler of her people. There is a lot of information she holds in her mind, and Volo was just able to hang out with her. Obviously, he would know a lot more than he leads on. He even goes on to talk with Colress and exchanges information about the stones. He's literally just making connections with every important character he can, and they're just letting him. Ooh boy, I love dramatic irony, because he straight up mentions that the purpose of all the connections he's making are just so he can use them. Though this was by far the most interesting piece, because at one point he says the same line about not giving up no matter if it takes decades or centuries, saying that this time he will succeed, which kind of implies that this is Volo after he was defeated by Ray. Funny to imagine that after he stormed off a spear pillar, he just went back to being a merchant until he was suddenly transported to Pasio. But the fact that he has Togepi with him here on Pasio really makes it a little confusing. I'm sure we'll get the answers later, but it is making me worried about like what he could be planning. And the final bit of story takes place after a bunch of important characters had just heard the voice of Arceus, telling them to show it their bond. Volo appears and joins this conversation as well. He convinces Lear to organize a big tournament as a way of showing Arceus the bonds between people and Pokemon, as a way of luring it out. And then the story ends on a little cliffhanger as Ray approaches Volo to talk. Interesting that now Volo's decided to show himself. I wonder if he's going to reveal anything immediately in this conversation. I'm pretty sure he'll just try to hide it and act like he's a different version of himself that isn't set on conquering. But tensions are high for sure. Of course, the story is definitely going to be continued at a later time, but oh man, there's just a lot going on here. Even with Pokemon Masters kind of being its own canon, I just love watching all these characters interact as the plot thickens. I don't know if this will culminate in like a Hisui villain arc, more likely a dedicated event, possibly the 5th anniversary later this year, but what a way to celebrate that would be. Volo definitely has an advantage over other villains with just how much he knows and how he's able to hide his true intention, but I guess I'll just be biting my nails until then. So let me know what you think about this event and where you want to see it go from here. I think I had mentioned before that I was a little cautious about how they could handle Volo's return in Pokemon Masters, first of all. This won't affect the main series games, but I had always thought that he's someone who could definitely return in some form as a reoccurring villain. It would just fit him best as opposed to other villains. But I think I'm happy with him being utterly humiliated at the end of Legends Arceus, and seeing him pop up again here is more of an extra treat. So yeah, definitely leave a comment below with your theories. Anyway, I better get back to training in case he decides to cheat with more Pokemon than he's allowed to have once again. Thank you to every channel member for your continued support, especially the great Gators, Mr. Saturn, Rainfrux, Cheez-It62, Switz Cheese, Michael Snyder, Lockadox, Gallantry, GatorKid509, TF, Cheeseburger Lasers, Mathiclog947, Nomad Nobi, Pastel Blood, Taijirai, Justin R, Volity, Cosmo Zero, Phantom, and Quago. If you would like to support, see your name here, get access to emotes for comments, live streams, sometimes early videos, and a members-only podcast every month, you can become a channel member today. You can also follow me on Twitter as well for more memes. Anyway, this is GatorX, and I'll catch you all later.